What is going on, everybody? Hopefully, you guys are doing well out there. That is right. It is finally Friday, and it's finally time for the FAANG Stock Recap Show here on the Investor Channel, where every Friday we recap all the major news and the technical chart patterns from all the major FAANG stocks, which all seem to be going in the wrong directions. Do we have some buying opportunities, not only for the S&P 500, but the broader FAANG stocks as well? We'll talk about areas that we're looking for in the coming weeks, maybe even as soon as next week, to buy the quote-unquote dip. Now, expect the FAANG Stock Recap Show to be posted around this hour going forward. I teach a class on Fridays to middle school students. Some of them actually watch the show, and so we have to post these a little bit later than normal. Let's not waste any more time. Kick things off like we always do with Meta Platforms. Start of the week at 521.69. Down about 4% to finish the week at about 500. That'll be the theme for today's show. Most of these down about 3 to 4%. Now, look, I've been critical of Mark Zuckerberg in the past, but over the past 12 months, even maybe 24 months, this dude has delivered, and he delivered a dividend. This is obviously old news, but I think we have to remind ourselves that we've got a mega cap tech company paying a dividend. This dividend is going to grow big time, since it is just a minuscule amount of the type of earnings that Meta earns going forward. Now, the Justice Department is going to drop its censorship efforts. My God, we have a First Amendment, and the Justice Department is going to drop censorship efforts. That seems like a good thing against all social media sites. Now, these social media sites still have some responsibility. I don't think you should be able to go on these social media sites and spew all kinds of maybe hate speech, and you can put that in quotes because there is some maybe gray area to certain types of speech, but I think we can all agree there's certain types of speech that goes over the line on across a different issues. And I think these companies actually do a relatively decent job there, but I don't think the government needs to step in like they did with Mark Zuckerberg and have them take down posts and memes as it related largely to COVID-19, maybe some election interference type of stuff. And I hope the Justice Department keeps that out of their business. Now, what is one of the big mysteries, and one of the reasons why I think we'll have some volatility in the stock market, is the current election that we've got just a couple of months away. I know we've got a debate that could be a pivotal debate just a couple of days from now, but right now it's a coin flip. As we sit here today on Friday, September 6th, I think you could flip a coin on either one of these candidates. That's how closely divided things are here in the United States. And one of the big question marks is because Harris didn't have the traditional kind of rollout of her campaign and her ideas and those types of things, she really hasn't had actually enough time to present those types of things. We're still trying to figure out what side of the fence is she's going to lie on. Is she going to be a far left liberal Democrat as the Republicans want to paint her? Is she going to be maybe slightly more closer to the center on certain issues? We literally don't know. But I think a big influence to her, like a lot of politicians, is going to be the people that write her checks, and her donors are privately calling for FTC Lena Khan, who we've criticized numerous times here on the channel, as she has pushed to break up and bring judicial actions against the mega cap tech companies, including Meta and many others. Also, the SEC's leader Gensler, who former President Donald Trump is pledging that he would fire if he gets elected. Looks like his job at the SEC is numbered as well if Harris listens to her donors, which I actually think she probably will. The SEC also been hard on crypto under Gensler, so it could have some major things coming. Well, obviously, tabs on the situation. It's a coin flip right now, so I think it's almost not even worth talking about, but as we get closer to November and maybe things start to look clear in one direction or another, we'll certainly discuss it more. Moving on to Apple, start of the week at 227, and we got a bite out of the Apple, down 2.76% to finish the week at 220.82. Now, the company is announcing its latest iPhone in an event about 1 week from Monday. So we've got this Monday coming up, which I think will be the 9th, and then so it'll be the following Monday on September 16th. You have a quote glow time event for the iPhone. We obviously got a huge preview into the software integration. We'll see when that software is available. We'll see which features roll out right away. There has been some rumors that some of the artificial intelligence features that Apple rolled out at their Worldwide Developer Conference might not be available until later this year. We'll also see other announcements as it relates to the iPhone, as the company is expected to move to all OLED displays, which I think are only available maybe on the premium iPhones, all new iPhones from 2025 going forward. So that won't come in the announcement next week, but you have OLED displays coming to all iPhones. Now, one of its major competitors, and certainly this has become a major story in the country of China, is Huawei continues to unveil new phones, and they continue to capture more market share. And they are going to unveil their new phone just hours after Apple's marquee event. And if you believe the company, they are saying that their new product has taken 5 years of work and investment. So we'll see if they have anything groundbreaking or just a device that more or less keeps up with the exceptional device, which is the Apple iPhone. Now, also, Huawei sees manufacturing snag ahead of its flagship phone launch. This all relates to the United States continuing to put all types of sanctions on the Chinese company, and it has difficult times making its semiconductors that go into the phone. Moving on to Amazon, start of the week at 177, and it didn't deliver, down 3.26%. Finished the week at 179.39. Now, Amazon is moving forward, and they are hiring more robot software makers to improve its warehouse automation. We've talked about this so many times. We had this story last week. A wonderful group of Staten Island warehouse workers formed a union. And so the way Amazon is going to battle back is by looking for ways to maybe in some ways augment the warehouse worker, which I think is always going to be a little bit of the case. But Amazon's going to try to go to as fully autonomous of a warehouse as possible, since that obviously could work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Guys, the robot is coming. There is some fantastic humanoid robot developments that are happening. Almost none of them are happening from public companies, and that is going to become a big story, just like AI has taken over the past year and a half or so. Now, Amazon's back. Anthropic, maker of that Claude AI enterprise model, they just rolled out a new one, and most people are thinking this is going to cost more than the $30 per month that it charges for a Teams plan. So these companies continue to roll out these GPT models, if you will, and they continue to roll out pricing plans. And maybe one day Anthropic goes public, and that could be a big payday for early investors like Amazon. Moving on to Netflix. Start of the week at $6.96. This one hit the reverse button, down over 4.3% to finish the week at almost an unlucky number, but just missed it, $665.77. Not a lot of news out of Netflix other than that the new season of Selling Sunset premieres, I believe, today. And so you better know what I'm going to be watching later tonight with my wife. Moving on to NVIDIA. Start of the week at 113. And oh no, you have got to tune into the Semiconductor Show this weekend. Links down in the description below to our channel. Thanks for everybody that has been watching those videos. They've been getting huge engagement and a lot of views for a channel. I think the other channel only has maybe 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers, so I really appreciate that. We're going to be talking a lot about NVIDIA. We'll talk about Broadcom, which we did a video on yesterday here on the main channel, and we'll talk more about Supermicro. We'll talk Intel, AMD, all the regular crew. NVIDIA in full-blown bear market territory, as just earlier this year, shares were at 140 after being down 9.2%. NVIDIA is now close to $100 per share, finished the week at 102.83. Now, a series of headlines here that leave you scratching in your head just a little bit. NVIDIA is said to receive a subpoena, and this is not a rumor. It's said to have received the subpoena from the Department of Justice in relation to an antitrust probe, which the antitrust probe believes that NVIDIA is pushing out competition from other semiconductor designers, maybe even potentially manufacturers as well, to maintain a monopoly in its business line. NVIDIA's argument, obviously, is we've been working on AI-accelerated GPU computing for 2 decades now, and we just happen to be one of the only companies in the world to have done that. Now, NVIDIA responded, actually, and said it did not receive a DOJ subpoena, despite the reports out there. But I think we have almost confirmation that something was sent over, as you have a member of the government, U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren, said she backs the Department of Justice antitrust probe into NVIDIA, which NVIDIA says doesn't exist. So who knows what's happening here? But one thing is for sure, if you get to a market cap where there is a T, not a B, but a trillion after your market cap, the DOJ, the FTC, the SEC, they're all coming after you because they've all spent our tax money and they got to get it one way or another. Now, NVIDIA's back. Recursion, which is a biotech company that is using some of NVIDIA's technology in terms of research and development and AI training to find new medicines and those types of things. Well, they had mixed results for their data in a league drug. And that is maybe somewhat of a disappointment for NVIDIA, which is touted maybe drug discovery as one of the use cases around AI. Well, if one of the companies that they've backed in terms of an investment and also likely giving them access to the powerful NVIDIA GPUs, well, if they're seeing mixed data, well, it makes you scratch your head and maybe wonder if the future is really that bright, at least in the immediate future, for AI medicine. And I know this is one of the sectors that I would just avoid at all cost is the biotech sector. Anybody telling you that they can pick biotech stocks is someone you should run from as fast as you possibly can. Even somebody with a medical background, but especially one that doesn't have one. Now, NVIDIA CEO sells $27 million in shares, a part of a trading plan. So CEOs like Mr. Jensen Huang do not want to get accused of insider trading since he basically has all of the company's knowledge at his fingertips. So they set up these trading plans. He continues to unload some of his shares at probably a premium valuation. Mr. Jensen probably shopping for yachts and Rolexes and all those types of things at the current time. Maybe another leather jacket as well. Now, Applied Digital, another company. NVIDIA does some interesting investments. I know we talked last week that they're maybe in a round of fundraising for OpenAI. That's obviously a premier company, at least on the private market, that probably has one of the highest valuations of any private company that is looking maybe potentially to go public, at least in the tech space. But they back these companies like Recursion, which is like literally a $6 penny stock. They backed Applied Digital, which is APLD, which is like a penny stock when they did it. They did a $160 million financing round. It was a private placement, allowing NVIDIA to kind of come in at $3.24 per share. Tell you what, these speculative stocks, a lot of people think they're going to run with the rate cuts. I would run from that advice. Stick to the core portfolio. Wait till this uncertainty shakes out, and then maybe you'll have some opportunities there. Moving on to Google, start of the week at 160, continuing to walk things back with Google as they face a lot of legal troubles, and they faced a drop this week of about 5.9%. The finished week at 150.92, and they're expected to appear in a courtroom, I believe, next week for an antitrust trial. This is related to their ad practice business. Now, obviously, most of you know that there was a major antitrust case where they were found guilty, yes, actually guilty of an illegally monopolizing online search. Now, this is a coalition of states that are going to show that Google broke antitrust laws in its digital advertising business. So this is obviously going after another piece of the pie for Google. And it is believed that if a victory is had here by the Justice Department, that the judge could order a breakup of Google, which they will obviously fight tooth and nail in the courtroom. But I don't think a breakup of Google would honestly, in the long run, in the short term, all these legals ups and downs for Google, probably not a good look, probably not a good thing. But in the long run, if you do get a breakup of Google, well, I tell you what, the IPO of their ad business, their IPO of YouTube, I mean, in a hot market, what would that thing IPO at? You just have to look at the value of Netflix and probably maybe add some zeros to that valuation. Now, moving over to Qualcomm, really love what Qualcomm is doing, at least on the chip design side. It really seems like they've got some really, really good R&D that they've done. They've done some nice things. They've won some products inside of Microsoft Surface tablets and other things, other devices. They're obviously well embedded inside of cell phones and those types of devices. Apple has struggled for years to try to get away from Qualcomm patents and licenses. They just haven't been able to do that. I like Qualcomm on the dips. We'll talk about more of that on the Semiconductor Show. We'll point some of those areas out if you want to tune in there. There's always timestamps if you want to, skip a 40-minute show and just skip to the technical segment of Qualcomm. But the company is working with Samsung and Google on mixed reality smart glasses. And so it's a little bit of a question mark if these smart glasses are going to be like the next Fitbit where they're kind of cool for a minute and they do sell a lot of units, but they maybe don't drive that incremental profits, particularly when we're talking about a company like Google or certainly Samsung, maybe even Qualcomm, where they're multi-billion, and in Google's case, like trillion-dollar company. Or smart glass is going to be like smartphones and actually be this transformative product that ushers in new revenue streams, very similar to what AI has done in the semiconductor industry. I think those questions are unknown at the current time, but I think the odds are good that the smart glasses could end up being a great product. Moving on to Microsoft, start of the week at 416, and this one wasn't immune. The software giant down 3.6% to finish the week at 401.70. Now, OpenAI just hit 1 million paid users of ChatGPT for its business. So it has kind of the consumer side, if you will. I subscribe to OpenAI. Probably actually should cancel my subscription. I don't think I use it enough to pay the $20, but the company is opening the door for potentially higher price subscriptions as high as maybe $2,000 a month to give you a lot of access. If you're constantly pinging the system, then you probably should pay a higher fee than the average customer. And OpenAI certainly seems like they have a good business model. I think that is needless to say. Now, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman is planning to build AI infrastructure in the U.S. that's going to cost tens of billions of dollars. So he's kind of dead set on doing some of this himself. This includes building out some data centers, obviously, growing energy capacity. That's kind of a next piece of the puzzle, although Blackwell and kind of direct liquid cooling solves, I don't want to say solves that, but mitigates the need for energy capacity, at least in kind of the shorter term. And you have transmission and turbines and generators, both clean energy and traditional type of energy, I guess you could say, and also expanding the semiconductor manufacturing business. So maybe they'll be interested in buying the foundry that Intel is likely going to have to spin out of their company in order to survive. But this is bullish for NVIDIA in the long term. In the short term, you're going to have some price volatility there, but in the long term, you got these companies just throwing billions of that. And on top of that, you've got a bunch of ex-OpenAI employees that feel like they're disgruntled. It's not just Elon Musk. It's basically everybody other than Sam Altman that has left this company. And the chief scientist that used to be at OpenAI raised $1 billion in funding. So you have a bunch of people in Silicon Valley that are sitting on cash because there's nothing to really invest in the great city of San Francisco, other than maybe cleaning up the homeless problem and the crime wave that has happened. So they're throwing the money at the AI companies. And if you worked for OpenAI and you were a chief scientist, well, it's not going to be hard to raise that cashola. Now, moving on to Tesla, start of the week at 218. This one actually held up pretty nicely. Down, I say only 3.6%, finished week at 210.73. Chinese automakers, though, continue to add more market share. We're seeing this on the smartphone side. Now we're seeing it on the automaker side. In fact, this is even more dramatic as foreign automakers, which would include Tesla's market share in China, slipped to 33%. 2 years ago, they had a dominant or a majority 53%. So boy, those Chinese automakers, Li Auto, NIO, those types of companies, they are moving so fast and efficiently. And obviously, as you'd expect, they're dominating the home market. Now, despite that, Tesla's China-made EV sales continue to grow in the month of August, 3% year over year. If you look at it month over month on the popular Model 3 and Model Y vehicles, you were up 17% month over month. So Tesla's still holding up as you continue to see domestic makers gain ground or dominate ground in China on the EV front. Now, Tesla is planning a full self-driving rollout in China and Europe by Q1 of 2025. I saw this tweet earlier this week. This is all pending regulatory approval. So this is an aggressive time frame in my opinion. Q1 2025, Europe and China, expecting full self-driving, expected improvements on full self-driving in September. Now, I am subscribed to the full self-driving software. I'm paying $99 a month. Been using it as much as possible. Now they're redoing the road out in front of my house. So the full self-driving does not work when the road is literally torn up. Full self-driving also, there's a one-way road into the golf course that I play at. And it doesn't like a certain segment there. I always have to turn it off there because it wants to run through what is actually a stop sign. And so full self-driving is not ready yet. It is not ready yet. And by I mean not ready yet, if I'm behind the wheel, it's perfectly fine. But I would not sit in the back seat. I certainly wouldn't put my kids back there. But needless to say, I think Tesla's going to put on a hell of a show. I believe this is next month. On October 10th, they're going to unveil the new robo-taxis, and they have pulled out all the stops. Glitz and Glamour, they pulled out a Warner Brothers studio in Burbank, California. They are going to put on a full-fledged production as they got a Hollywood movie lot to roll out its robo-taxi reveal. If that goes well, that actually could be a catalyst higher. I just would caution you to try the software out yourself, and I challenge you to use the software enough to answer the question, would you put your son or daughter in the back and say bye-bye and push the button on the Tesla? I'm going to guess most of you will answer you wouldn't, and that means full self-driving is not ready yet. Now, moving over to the S&P 500, this is a disappointment. We talked about this last week, as I recall. Correct me in the comment section if I am wrong about this, but we wanted to kind of see this one set a new higher high. Technically, this is barely a lower low that we literally have just confirmed here, but this is not a good sign from a technical perspective. Again, this is just in the shorter term. Also, we continue to be over and extended above our channel lines. As most of you know, when we have red channel lines on, we're just kind of like pausing. We're not really excited. We should have some exposure to the stock market, so we're excited that we're up towards all-time highs. I mean, we're a stone throw closer to the all-time highs than testing the bottom of the channel, but not making and confirming a new higher high makes me believe we're probably headed lower, retesting these areas on the S&P 500 back at, call it 5,100 and some change. That would be an interesting spot. Obviously, if we get further deeper pullbacks than that, we'll have those discussions then, and they'll be aggressively buying discussions more than likely. Now, moving over to Meta. This has confirmed higher highs, although just, I mean, we're talking just barely, but, you know, look, barely is good enough in a lot of cases. We have retreated from the highs that we just made. That is all normal. You should have areas at 480 if you're dying for that. I don't think I'd really be doing that. Got areas down here at 453. You should have the convergence of what I would consider that's probably a trend for Meta. Convergence onto that, that's my first stop for Meta. That also correlates with some lows that we had back in April. That would be right around 430 on this one. So I'm waiting for about 430 on Meta. That'd be the first area where I'm excited. Apple's absolutely confirmed a lower high. It's possible we look back in July was the high in the markets. You have a lower high here in August. This one looks like it wants to continue to head lower despite the event that the company will have unveiling its iPhones. And what catalysts do we have for the stock market other than more clarity in the presidential race? Okay, that could be something that sends the markets higher or lower. So next Tuesday's debate, obviously the first debate, and actually the only debate between current President Biden and Trump, was a massive event in politics. Maybe one of the biggest events in the history of politics, certainly modern day politics, and certainly debates, because it effectively eliminated Joe Biden's run for a second term. And so if we could see a similar type of thing this next Tuesday, boy, next Friday, we could be having a lot of discussions as it relates to politics. That is one thing that is certainly uncertain in these markets, but we don't have earnings for a while for these companies. We don't hear from Apple until like the last week of October. I mean, your kids are going to be, you know, getting ready for trick-or-treating before we hear from this one. So you still got a ways to go. Amazon is trying to hold this level, hold this channel. I mean, I hate adjusting these lines, but I guess you can. You're trying to hold this level with Amazon. It had consolidated in the past at this level. And if you get Jeff Bezos stopping to sell his stock, this one could potentially hold this level. You wouldn't want to see Amazon drop below 165, and because I think that brings in 140. And if it gets to 140, that's probably your time to move. Now, Netflix just off fresh all-time highs, basically confirming higher highs. Pullbacks in Netflix look good. This is usually the first company to report. You won't get them until the second week of October. So we're more than a month away before we get any type of earnings momentum on these stocks. So markets more or less in purgatory until I think we get some clarity on basically a lot of issues, including the rate cut pace that the Federal Reserve decides to go on. Now, NVIDIA, yes, it is off the 140 highs, but almost nobody bought NVIDIA stock up at 140. Now, also, from a technical perspective, it doesn't look good. We made a high, lower high, and we absolutely confirmed another lower high. But we are still at the top of a long-term channel. This is an area where, you be cautious. I am in NVIDIA. I'm down like 4 or 5% on this one, but I'm not really sweating it. There's another area where I'm going to put the last stamp of a buy. That's right here, right at about 100. I think everybody's got this marked out on their chart, so I'll probably step in, 100 and some change, 178, or just pick an odd number. If I'm Elon Musk, it's 169 or something like that. There's a gap in the chart that has filled, but that should have some area of momentum. We should come down here with NVIDIA. That's your buying opportunity. Now, it doesn't come without its risk. I'll have a stop loss at 75. In fact, I have a stop loss on this one at 75. So I got a pretty deep loss if this one does not work out. But just based on the headlines that we saw from OpenAI, everything that we've seen from NVIDIA going forward, all the data that I'm seeing on kind of the paid newsletter side that I pay for that's really strong research, nothing is slowing down here other than the stock price. Now, moving on to Google, this is a good thing. Okay, if you're into Google and you want to buy this one, we are now back into the channel. We're approaching a level here. If you were patient, now here's your time. Wouldn't say this is when you want 10 shares of Google. This is when you buy like 1 or 2 of them. Obviously, referring to people that have free trading accounts, which is most people. Here's your shot. 140, even 150 if you feel like it on Monday. That's not a problem. Further pullbacks down below 150, I think could be slightly more aggressively bought. This channel might not hold, but that's not the worst thing because you have a longer term trend down here. And so I would just kind of look at it incrementally, buy this one. A stop loss for Google should be like at 107. I don't think you want to get 107 because then I think the 80s are likely back in play. Microsoft did not confirm a move higher. The sellers are just stepping in. We are inside the green box with Microsoft. These are areas where I think you can lightly add to the software maker when you're at the top of the green box. As we move lower on the green box, I think you can be slightly more aggressive. Tesla still remains elevated over what we would consider kind of a buying opportunity. Stock is still trying to figure out, at least in the shorter term, what it wants to do. It hasn't confirmed. I'm talking about kind of the micro trend that we're in, like kind of right here. It hasn't confirmed a new lower low. We've had some major swings on this one, as the case with Tesla. It's obviously a high volatility stock. Haven't confirmed a new lower low, and if it doesn't, then you should assume that maybe that October 10th event, which is actually not that far away, it'll come sooner than any type of earnings that we get from not only this company but the rest. But that could be your push up in here to maybe back up to 300. You get a move back up to 300 on Tesla. I think that's your time to take some profits, at least on a portion of your investment. You don't have to sell your whole shares, but that would be an area where I would grab some profits as the shine of that event. And I think the software will likely fade just a little bit as reality sets in. Folks, reality has set in. It is Friday. It is the weekend. I hope you have a fun and safe weekend. I will be back next week. I don't think we've got a ton of earnings left, but we'll continue to post videos on both channels. Thanks for your support. Like and share the video and subscribe if you haven't already, or I will knock you out when I see you next Friday. Thanks for tuning in. That was like a threat. Good luck with your investments.